The payroll error should have been simple to fix. Claire Ashford, CEO of Ashford Textiles since inheriting the company from her late father 18 months earlier, had pulled up the finance department's records personally after a junior accountant flagged a discrepancy in a routine reimbursement request submitted by Daniel Cruz, one of the company's warehouse supervisors. As she reviewed the account details attached to his expense form, one string of numbers stopped her cold. The account routing information matched, almost exactly, a set of numbers she'd stared at hundreds of times over the past year and a half. The destination account for a mysterious monthly wire transfer of $1 million that her father, Richard Ashford, had authorized every month for nearly a decade before his death, hidden from the company's general financial reporting under a vague internal label, family obligation. Claire had spent months after her father's passing trying to trace where that money had gone, assuming, at various points, blackmail, a secret business venture, or some other explanation that never quite made sense for a man she'd always believed to be scrupulously honest. The transfers had stopped abruptly upon his death, and despite her best efforts, the trail had gone cold months ago. Until now. "Get me Daniel Cruz's personnel file," Claire told her assistant, her voice tighter than she intended. "Today, if possible." Daniel Cruz had worked at Ashford Textiles for 6 years, respected among his warehouse team for his steady leadership and reliability, entirely unaware that his routine reimbursement form had just unraveled a mystery 18 months in the making. He was a single father to 12-year-old twins, Marisol and Diego, having raised them alone since their mother's death from a rare autoimmune disorder when the twins were barely 4 years old. When Claire's assistant asked him to come to the executive floor for an unscheduled meeting, Daniel assumed, with quiet dread, that it concerned some warehouse infraction he wasn't aware of. "Mr. Cruz," Claire said, gesturing to the seat across from her desk once he arrived, her composure carefully maintained despite the questions racing through her mind. "I need to ask you about an account associated with your reimbursement form. Specifically, the account it's linked to." Daniel's expression flickered with confusion. "That's my daughter's medical trust account. I use it sometimes for reimbursements since it's easier to track for tax purposes." "Is something wrong with it?" "Your daughter's medical trust account," Claire repeated slowly. "Can you tell me how that account was established?" Daniel hesitated, clearly uncomfortable discussing something deeply personal in a corporate setting, but something in Claire's expression told him this wasn't idle curiosity. "It was set up anonymously, about 10 years ago, shortly after my wife passed away. Marisol was diagnosed with a rare kidney condition around the same time, one that needed ongoing treatment we couldn't have afforded on my income alone. An anonymous donor started wiring money into a trust for her care. I never knew who. The lawyer who set it up said the benefactor wanted to remain unidentified." Claire felt her pulse quicken. "How much and how often?" $1 million monthly for years," Daniel said. "It stopped about a year and a half ago, actually. I always assumed the donor either ran out of resources or passed away. Marisol's condition stabilized enough by then that we no longer needed ongoing support at that scale, thankfully, though I've always wondered who it was so I could properly thank them." Claire sat back slowly, the pieces settling into place with a clarity that left her both relieved and devastated. "I think," she said quietly, "that donor might have been my father." Over the following hour, Claire pieced together fragments of a story her father had never shared with her. Richard Ashford, it turned out, had known Daniel's late wife years earlier. She had briefly worked as a junior designer at Ashford Textiles before leaving to start her own family, and according to old company records Claire dug up that evening, Richard had personally covered a portion of her medical bills during an earlier illness, quietly, without ever mentioning it to anyone. When she passed away and Marisol's condition emerged shortly after, it seemed Richard had continued that quiet generosity, establishing the anonymous trust to ensure Daniel's daughter received the care she needed, never once seeking credit or acknowledgement for it. "My father was a complicated man," Claire told Daniel, once she'd shared what she'd uncovered. "He wasn't always warm, wasn't always present. I spent months after he passed convinced those wire transfers meant something dark about him. I never imagined this was the explanation." Daniel sat in stunned silence, processing the revelation that a stranger's quiet decade-long generosity had a face, a name, a reason behind it after all this time. "Your father saved my daughter's life," he said finally, voice thick with emotion. "I never got the chance to thank him." "He wouldn't have wanted the thanks," Claire said, offering a small, sad smile. "But I think he'd want to know Marisol is doing well." In the months that followed, Claire made the deliberate choice to continue what her father had started, not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection to a family whose story had unexpectedly intertwined with her own. She established a formal scholarship fund in her father's name for children managing chronic illnesses, with Marisol as its first recipient, and found herself, almost without meaning to, becoming a regular presence in the Cruz family's life. Daniel, for his part, finally understood the quiet anonymous kindness that had carried his family through their hardest years, and in Claire, found not just closure to a decade-old mystery, but the beginning of an unexpected friendship built on a debt neither of them had known needed repaying, until a routine payroll error revealed a story both of their families had been living inside all along.